Mr. Speaker, may I first thank you for taking on the heavy role of maintaining the honour of this House and for the opportunity to address it and tell of the reasons I have come here and where I have come from. There is a value which you will hear frequently in this address because I feel it deeply. It's gratitude. I am grateful to live in a safe country. For the most part, we are peaceful and free, but freedom and safety were not ordained. For many generations, New Zealand has built and preserved our society based on rights and responsibilities, picking up the litter and putting it in the bin, especially when no one is watching, giving the benefit of the doubt to your neighbour or saying g'day to the person you pass on the street, little things which maintain trust and openness. These are all things that I think can be best summed up by the honesty box culture. Every honesty box I see on the side of the road makes me smile. And in my opinion, the number of honesty boxes that Kiwis have show the health of this society. Each person who puts something grown or made out on the street shows a faith in their country. And along with those who pay up without the eyes of a store clerk watching, they exhibit their trust and gratitude to their neighbour, and by doing so, display what it means to be a New Zealander. I am grateful to our rule of law and our democracy, whose participation and process has seen me standing here today addressing the House as an ACT MP. I'm grateful to all those members and supporters who worked so hard on the ground to ensure ACT's best ever result, especially to the Tauranga and Bay of Plenty crew, some of whom have been around for a while, and others have joined before, during and after the Tauranga by-election. I'm so impressed by the work you've done, and it's a privilege to be part of an amazing and growing team. Our democracy and our way of life survives on the faith and peaceful satisfaction of the people who live within it. However, sometimes this enlightened country has needed defending from without. It hit me like a 240 volt the first time I walked into this chamber and looked up and saw the names of places in which New Zealand's forces, including my ancestors, have defended our rights and our place in the world. It is an immense honour to be standing in this part of the House in particular, Mr. Speaker, under the name of the theatre in which fought the man who bequeathed me my surname and the medals in front of me, Stanley George Luxton of the Wellington Mounted Rifles. It's an honour and a privilege to be guardian of these treasures, tangible and intangible. I want to thank all our servicemen and women, past and present, for what you've done for us. For I have had a fortunate life. My two sisters and I were raised by loving parents who set about being the best parents they could be. Despite their childhoods not grounding them in what it means to be a happy, healthy human, they made choices and sacrifices for the long term and gave us an upbringing that was a gift. I'm so grateful that when faced with the choice of an international corporate career, travel, a life of country hopping, my parents, Rod and Cherie, chose instead to bring us home to New Zealand and move to what was then the small and not so well-known coastal town of Papamoa Beach. Thank you, Lucko, for buying a 12-foot tinny with a sketchy motor to brave the surf and teach me to fish. And thank you, Mum, for giving me a moral compass. We love you both, Nano Nan and Lucko. Thank you for all you've done for our family and the generations to come. Living by the beach and near Rotorua Lakes meant to take full advantage of what the Bay of Plenty has to offer, required learning to swim. I'm grateful that Papamoa Primary School pool was a community asset available. Without the competence to swim, the life I've led would have been very different. Swimming in some crazy places gave me the confidence to take on oceans and the hills, and now something equally daunting, politics. That small town of Papamoa grew and fueled the massive growth of the city to which it belongs. The small town changed into Tauranga's largest suburb. Having a family in the building game, and with so much opportunity in the trades, I left school, which was never my forte, and at 16, I moved to a campground in Rotorua to start my building trade. It's a wild time when you're out of home and in a new town. I met some lifelong friends whose love and friendship is a blessing I cherish. Builders have a no-nonsense type of character. Not to say that the on-site banter isn't the best you'll ever hear, but if it ain't straight and plumb, you'll know about it. Every tradie deals with what's in the world. So it can be infuriating when the realm of rules and laws doesn't match the reality of what's on the ground. As our leaders get further away from the site of production, further from how buildings are built, food is grown, fish are caught, resources harvested and services provided, it's no wonder we have a productivity crisis. As with recent examples of housing supply initiatives, tradies and property owners rightly ask, how does a government think they can change the direction of a housing supply crisis without changing the real factors which affect our ability to provide houses and actually build more? I've heard it said while sitting on an upturned bucket in a half-built garage at Smoko one day, this lot either thinks we're corrupt or incompetent if they think they can build houses faster or cheaper than we can without changing the stupid rules we all have to follow. This disconnect goes beyond missing what should be done. It also has a pervasive effect on something more important to our society: trust. It's a feeling whose shadows show up in surveys and data, but it's real to so many Kiwis who just want to re-harness the can-do attitude. How many of them have experienced the looming doom of a taxpayer-funded ute or EV rolling up the driveway or tanker track, or increasingly an email arriving in your inbox with yet another pointless issue you have to sort out to comply with some unworkable or out-of-touch rule? We've gone too far in the direction of centralisation. The only thing that has ever innovated and produced more in this world is private citizens working for themselves, their families, communities and each other. Sometimes government input is required, and when it is chosen by the citizens in equal franchise, it is legitimate. But people in the productive economy know that often there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And sometimes what is traded away is hard to get back. The housing crisis has been talked about in every quarter. I believe strongly that if this doesn't get sorted, then the negative effects on every aspect of Kiwis' lives will lead to a broken future for our country, which will be hard to repair. It could be seen as ironic that to come to Parliament means I've put down my apron and am no longer swinging a hammer on site to contribute some houses to our stock. But as the only LBP ever elected to this House, I am here to enable my fellow tradies and everyone who thinks New Zealand can only reach our potential if driven by our productive sectors. We do this by making space for the underground knowledge of the true experts in any society, the people that do. The world isn't a finite resource. Innovation and exploration discover new territories of knowledge which we can use to help our fellow humans in every way to be freer and happier. As I'm sure each member of this House can attest, there are many reasons why someone chooses to get into politics. Mr. Speaker, I have half a dozen circumstances that I could tell you which pushed me towards a political direction, but let me speak of the one which forced me over the edge. I was not strongly suited to mainstream education. One of the most vivid memories that I have is the feeling of entrapment and fear when at 6 I realised I couldn't leave this place. It's a soul-crushing feeling, and perhaps it's not surprising that a love of school didn't take. I felt this in every year of my schooling, except 18 months, when at a newly opened school, Te Ako Ki Papamoa, I was fortunate enough to be in the class of Mr. Simeon. That school and teacher didn't follow every other experience I'd had of school until then. Because of a shortage of space in a growing school, our class was a rented house down an alleyway off school grounds. And the way our class was run was so freeing and inspiring, I started thriving. I learnt to read. I was so comfortable that I didn't even wag school once. In fact, I would do my New Zealand Herald delivery run and still turn up to school early. This is an experience we want for every Kiwi kid. We know that education is the path to a better life. I was on the sidelines when Kura Haurua began. I looked on from the back paddock, and I'll get to the back paddock in a second, and waited with real hope for the future of New Zealand, when the charter school model would move into areas where the most good could be done. And I looked forward to the day when every parent in the country could choose a school that was right for their child, and the angriest, that I can ever remember feeling in my life was the day that gift of charter schools was taken away. The anger was fueled by the hopelessness of knowing that so many kids would miss the experience of finding their place. This robbed our country and poor communities up and down New Zealand of a chance to see what these kids would do. The day kura haurua was stopped by the kind previous government, I decided that in whatever way I could, I would help the political party who gave, if even for a moment, that chance to Kiwi kids. Now to that back paddock. When the GFC hit construction, I was about 20, so it was time I went on my OE. But it wasn't to Europe, America, or even over the Tasman. I moved to a place I will love for the rest of my life, a little pastoral island wedged between the Kaingaroa Plain, forest, and Te Urewera, a place called Galatea on the Kuhawaia Plain. Grateful isn't a strong enough word for how I feel about this place and the community. It was there that I dairy farmed, hunted, played rugby. Galatea is the best place I have ever known. I had so many formative experiences and learnt some of my most important lessons while in the valley. Many of them influenced my politics. From crimes and gangs, education, health, and the society of our country, but the central experience, and the one I will wish to briefly speak about, is farming. New Zealand is blessed to have a farming community who care about their animals and people, but also about the land and the environment in which their work is enmeshed in. My years on farm taught me to respect and care for the world we have. This lesson is held by farmers of all types. I am grateful to our agrarians who will, when the seasons demand it, often work themselves ragged to feed us and pay our overseas bills. And when lessons are learnt on how to improve the environment, they put that into action with passion. Rural people have a different view on life because when it comes down to it, when you've lived in the world of mud and blood and death and birth, one can't help but take a long-term view. Farmers know what it is to pull a calf out in the mud or turn the tractor off at golden hour and watch the world come alive when the sun is low. To be eaten by bugs and covered in crap and love every minute of it. It's in Galatea where I met my wife Susan. To you, my darling, thank you for all the support and love you give me. I'm sorry because I know you thought you were marrying a dairy farmer and living in Galatea, and now you got stuck with a politician, but it's your gracious manner and ability to be loved in every environment you enter which fills me and our kids with so much confidence that our family can do anything. To my beautiful children, both of you, I'm sorry in advance for not being available as you've been used to throughout your lives. I might not be there every night to tell you three things, but you are strong and you are both growing into the good people that we talk about. The list of people who have gotten me here and made me the man I'm standing in front of you today is long. Friends, family, workmates, opponents, mentors, past and present. The places and situations which have impacted on me. Sometimes it's hard to believe where I've found myself and the people I've been there with. From the moments when I've felt the sublime, to the moments where the pain has nearly had me pass out. Mr. Speaker, I am here for this country because of the potential it has to build on the good things left to us by the people who have gone before. We are fortunate to have inherited traditions going back centuries and millennia. Therefore, we owe to the future the chance to do better than we have, with the tools we can give them. I am not blind to the travesties of the past, but I am grateful for the good which has been left to us. As the immortal song says, we don't know how lucky we are, mate. I offer my experiences to this house and to make my contribution worthwhile. My trust in the sanctity of the individual, the rule of law, free speech, property rights. These are what I am here to defend. They are not physical items. They cannot be hoarded away in a quiet place and taken out just to be displayed and looked at. These treasures must be put into the world, defended and lived up to. These concepts are anti-fragile. They only get stronger when challenged, just as those who defend these values must be anti-fragile too. I believe that every New Zealander should have the privilege, as Henley puts it, to be master of their fate and captain of their soul. Mr. Speaker, I might not know to the fullest extent how lucky it is to be the inheritor of these taonga, left to us in a liberal democracy, but every day I will be grateful. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.